Some say a secret group of men wearing leopard skins and wielding metal claws committed ritual murders to gain power. Another organization, whose members called themselves charcoal burners, plotted revolutions across an entire country in hidden forest huts. There was even a society whose members swore oaths to fight for the rights of same-sex love over a century ago, when such ideas could lead to prison. And deep in the American heartland, masked riders with horns on their heads once delivered their own brutal form of justice, only to become feared themselves. Number 10. The Société Angélique. Imagine 16th century France, a time of great religious upheaval and blossoming Renaissance thought. In this charged atmosphere, a very private group known as the Société Angélique or Angelic Society is said to have existed. Details about them are incredibly scarce, which is exactly what you'd expect from a truly secret society. They weren't about overthrowing kings or staging public protests. Their secrets were of a more intellectual and spiritual kind. The society is thought to have been active around the mid-1500s, primarily in Paris, a hub of new ideas and old traditions. Its members were rumored to be poets, scholars, and thinkers interested in what we now call esoteric subjects. This means they were looking into mystical knowledge, ancient wisdom, and perhaps even types of spirituality that weren't part of the mainstream church teachings. In an era when the wrong religious or philosophical idea could get you into serious trouble with powerful authorities, secrecy was not just a preference, it was a necessity. One of the most famous names, sometimes linked to the Société Angélique, is Guillaume Postel. Postel was a brilliant but controversial figure of his time. He was a linguist, a cartographer, a scholar of Jewish mysticism known as Kabbalah, and he had some very unique ideas about the world and religion. He believed in a kind of universal harmony and even predicted a coming age of world unity under a French king and a reformed, more inclusive Christianity. If Postel was involved, it gives us a clue about the kinds of discussions that might have happened behind the society's closed doors, deep dives into ancient texts, searching for hidden meanings, and exploring pathways to spiritual enlightenment that were far off the beaten track. The angelic part of their name might hint at an interest in angelology, the study of angels, or perhaps a belief in receiving divine or angelic guidance. This wasn't uncommon in Renaissance mystical circles. People were fascinated by the idea of a hidden order in the universe, of connecting with higher intelligences, and of uncovering secrets that could lead to personal transformation or a deeper understanding of God. Why so secret then? The 16th century was rife with religious conflict, particularly between Catholics and Protestants. The Inquisition was active, and anything that smelled of heresy or unconventional spiritual practices could attract dangerous attention. A society discussing Kabbalah, ancient philosophies, or alternative spiritual paths would have had every reason to keep its existence and its membership under wraps. They likely met in private homes, perhaps sharing manuscripts that were difficult or dangerous to obtain. Their legacy isn't in grand political changes or public monuments. It's in the quiet undercurrents of thought, the pursuit of knowledge that dared to step outside the accepted boundaries. Because they were so effective at being secret, we're left with more questions than answers, a faint whisper of bright minds meeting in shadows to explore the universe's biggest mysteries. The very fact that we know so little is a testament to their success in maintaining their secrecy. Number 9. Die Spinne. After World War II ended in 1945, Europe was in ruins, and many high-ranking Nazi officials and SS members faced trials for war crimes. However, not all of them were caught. A shadowy organization, whose name translates from German as the Spider, reportedly played a significant role in helping some of these individuals escape justice. Die Spinne, as it was known, is said to have been a highly effective secret network. Primary goal of Die Spinne was to facilitate the escape of Nazis and SS officers from Germany and Austria, often to countries in South America, like Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil, or to the Middle East. These escape routes became known as rat lines. The organization allegedly provided fugitives with false identities, travel documents, money, and contacts in their destination countries. It was a sophisticated operation, requiring careful planning and connections in various places. One of a few names often associated with Die Spinne is Otto Skorceni. Skorceni was a high-profile SS officer known for his daring rescue of Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. After the war, Skorceni himself escaped Allied custody and was later rumored to be a key figure in Die Spinne, using his wartime connections and skills to help others evade capture. While concrete proof of his direct leadership of a single unified organization called Die Spinne is debated by historians, his involvement in post-war networks aiding former Nazis is widely reported. The way Die Spinne operated was, by its very nature, cloaked in secrecy. Information suggests it relied on a web of sympathizers, former SS comrades, and potentially even individuals within Allied organizations or neutral countries who were willing to help, either for ideological reasons, for money, or due to old allegiances. The funds for these operations reportedly came from hidden Nazi assets, valuables taken during the war, or contributions from wealthy supporters. The existence and extent of Die Spinne are subjects of ongoing historical investigation, because it was an underground network designed to operate outside the law and in the shadows. Hard evidence like official documents or membership lists is extremely rare. Much of what is known comes from intelligence reports, memoirs of those involved, and journalistic investigations conducted years after the fact. Some historians argue that Die Spinne might have been less a single monolithic organization and more a convenient label for various overlapping and sometimes independent groups working towards similar goals. Regardless of its precise structure, the outcome was that many individuals accused of terrible crimes managed to disappear and start new lives under assumed names, evading the Nuremberg trials and other post-war justice efforts. The idea of a spider's web effectively describes how these networks operated with multiple threads, all interconnected, allowing fugitives to slip through the cracks. The legacy of Die Spinne, or the networks it represents, is a disturbing reminder of how determined individuals, bound by a shared past and ideology, could continue to operate and subvert justice even after the fall of the regime they served. The full extent of its operations and the exact number of people it helped escape may never be fully known, a secret largely buried with its participants. Number 8. The Bald Knobbers. In the rugged Ozark Mountains of Missouri during the 1880s, a group of men took justice into their own hands, and they became known as the Bald Knobbers. This wasn't some ancient mystical order, but a vigilante group born out of post-Civil War chaos and a breakdown of law and order in Taney County. Their story is a fascinating and rather dark chapter of American frontier history. The name Bald Knobbers came from their meeting place, a treeless hilltop, or bald knob, called Snaps Bald, near Kirbyville. The region was struggling. After the Civil War, there was a lot of tension between former Union and Confederate sympathizers. Bushwhackers and outlaws roamed freely, and the official legal system was often weak or ineffective. Frustrated by rampant crime, including murder, theft, and arson, a group of local citizens, led by a medic man named Nat N. Kinney, decided they had had enough. In 1885, they formed a secret society to clean up the county. Initially, the Bald Knobbers had some public support. They aimed to drive out criminals, punish wrongdoers, and restore peace. Their methods, however, were harsh. They would often issue warnings to suspected troublemakers. If these warnings were ignored, the bald knobbers would pay a night visit. These visits were terrifying. The men wore simple but intimidating masks, often made of black fabric with eye holes, and sometimes adorned with horns to hide their identities. They would whip, beat, or sometimes even shoot those they targeted. The secrecy of the bald knobbers was crucial. Their masks and nighttime raids were designed to protect them from retaliation and legal consequences. They had secret oaths and likely recognition signs. As their power grew, so did their numbers, reportedly reaching several hundred, perhaps even 1,000 or more, at their peak. They effectively became the unofficial law in the area for a time. However, the story took a darker turn. As often happens with vigilante groups operating outside the law, the bald knobbers themselves began to be accused of abuses. Personal vendettas sometimes replaced community justice. Some members were accused of using the group's power for their own gain, intimidating innocent people or settling old scores. The very lawlessness they had formed to combat started to characterize their own actions. This led to the formation of an opposing group, the anti-bald knobbers, and the county became even more divided and violent. The authorities eventually stepped in. The violence and the group's challenge to official law could not be ignored indefinitely. After a series of incidents, including killings attributed to bald knobbers, the state government and local law enforcement began to crack down. Key leaders were arrested, and some were put on trial. Nat Kinney himself was shot and killed in 1888 by an enemy, not in a bald knobber raid, but in a personal dispute. By the late 1880s and early 1890s, the bald knobbers, as an organized force, had largely disbanded, partly due to internal divisions and partly due to increased pressure from the law. Their legacy is complex. Some remember them as heroes who tried to bring order to a lawless land. Others see them as a dangerous mob, who ultimately became perpetrators of violence themselves. The image of the horned, masked night riders remains a potent and somewhat chilling folk legend in the Ozarks, a testament to a time when ordinary men, cloaked in secrecy and driven by a rough sense of justice, took the law into their own hands. Number 7. Eclampus vitus. Now for something a little different. Imagine a secret society that's less about shadowy global conspiracies and more about historical preservation, camaraderie, and a healthy dose of absurdity. Meet Eclampus vitus, or ECV, a fraternal organization with roots in the wild days of the California Gold Rush and a spirit that's uniquely American West. If you've never heard of them, that's partly by design and partly because their secrets are often tongue-in-cheek. Eclampus vitus first emerged in the mining camps of California around 1849 or the early 1850s. The story goes that it was founded by a man named Ephraim B., though some say it was a playful response or even a parody of more serious and established fraternal orders like the Masons or Oddfellows, which were also popular among miners. The miners, often living in rough conditions and facing daily uncertainties, needed an outlet for fun and mutual support. ECV provided that in spades. The stated purpose of ECV is to commemorate and preserve the history of the American West, especially mining history and the overlooked stories of the common man. They erect historical plaques, often at sites ignored by more official historical societies, marking everything from old saloons and unique local events to the graves of colorful frontier characters. These plaques are serious in their historical intent, but often feature the society's distinctive humor. Membership in ECV is supposedly by invitation only, and it's open to men of good moral character and sound mind, though the latter is often humorously questioned by members themselves. The initiation rituals are secret, but they are widely understood to be elaborate, often comical affairs designed to test the candidate's humility and sense of humor, rather than to impart ancient mystical wisdom. New members are called poor blind candidates. The society's motto is Credo quia absurdum, which is often translated as I believe it because it is absurd. Another unofficial motto is righting wrongs and wronging rights, hinting at their playful, irreverent nature. The organization is structured into local chapters, and the titles of their officers are delightfully whimsical. The head of a chapter is the Noble Grand Humbug, assisted by officials like the Roisterous Iscutus and the Grand Imperturbable Hangman. Members are known as clampers. They often wear red shirts, a tradition that reportedly started because red was a common color for miners' long underwear. One of the most endearing aspects of ECV is its charitable work, which often goes unpublicized. Despite their boisterous public persona, claimers are known for supporting local historical societies, museums, and individuals in need, especially widows and orphans of miners, reflecting their historical roots. This charitable arm is known as the Widows and Orphans Fund, and taking care of the widders, as they affectionately call them, is a serious clamper responsibility. Clampus Vitus experienced a decline after the gold rush era, but was revived in the 1930s by historian Carl Irving Wheat and his associates. It has since grown, with chapters across California and other Western states. While they enjoy their secret handshakes and rituals, their main secrets seem to be about how to have a good time while doing good historical and charitable work. They are a living piece of Western history themselves, a society that uses humor and fellowship to keep the stories and spirit of the old mining days alive. They prove that not all secret societies have to be about power or darkness. Some are about remembering the past with a laugh and a helping hand. Number 6. The Garduna. This one is particularly shadowy, so much so that some historians today question if it ever truly existed as a formal, long-lived organization, or if it was a later invention or a collection of smaller, disparate criminal gangs. We're talking about the Garduna, a supposed secret criminal society said to have operated in Spain from the 15th century all the way up to the 19th century. If it was real, it was like a criminal version of Freemasonry, with its own laws, rituals, and a terrifying reputation. The stories about the Garduna paint a picture of a highly organized underworld syndicate. Its origins are sometimes traced back to the tumultuous period of the Reconquista in Spain, when Christian kingdoms were reconquering territory from Muslim rulers. The legend suggests it began as a group protecting certain communities but eventually morphed into a purely criminal enterprise, preying on society rather than protecting it. They were said to be involved in a wide range of criminal activities: kidnapping, robbery, extortion, assassination, and smuggling. They supposedly offered their services for a price, acting as hired muscle or assassins for anyone who could pay. According to the tales, the Garduna had a complex hierarchical structure. At the very top was a supreme leader known as the Grand Master or Hermano Mayor, elder brother. Beneath him were various ranks and specialized roles, each with specific duties. They were said to have different levels of initiation, secret signs, and passwords to recognize fellow members and maintain their secrecy. Their code of conduct was supposedly strict, with harsh penalties for betrayal or disobedience. The city of Seville, a major port and center of trade, is often cited as one of their main strongholds. One of the most intriguing and perhaps dubious claims about the Garduna is its alleged connection with the Spanish Inquisition. Some accounts suggest a bizarre, almost symbiotic relationship, where the Garduna would carry out dirty work for certain corrupt elements within the Inquisition, or that they were tolerated as long as they didn't interfere with the Church's primary targets. This particular claim is highly speculative and adds to the mystique, but also to the skepticism surrounding the society's actual nature. The main source for many of these detailed descriptions of the Garduna comes from a book published in 1846 by a writer named Manuel de Gamarra, titled Misterios de la Inquisición, Nistes of the Inquisition and Other Secret Societies of Spain. This book provided an extensive account of the society's structure, laws, and history. However, modern historians have pointed out that Gamarra's work lacks strong contemporary documentary evidence from the earlier centuries he describes. Some scholars believe Gamarra may have exaggerated, romanticized, or even largely fabricated the details of a unified, ancient Garduna, possibly basing it on the realities of 19th century criminal gangs or drawing inspiration from popular novels about secret societies. So was the Garduna a real centuries-old secret criminal empire, or a 19th century literary creation that took on a life of its own? It's hard to say definitively. There certainly were bandits and criminal organizations in Spain throughout history. It's possible that the Garduna was a name given perhaps much later to a collection of such groups, or that a more localized or short-lived version did exist. Truth remains elusive, shrouded in the mists of time and the pages of sensational literature. But the legend of the Garduna persists as a chilling tale of an underworld order operating with its own secret rules deep within the shadows of Spanish history. Number 5. The Beati Paoli. From the sun-baked island of Sicily comes the legend of the Beati Paoli, or the Blessed Pauls. This is a secret society, or perhaps more accurately, a legendary sect that has captured the Sicilian imagination for centuries. They are often portrayed as a kind of medieval vigilante group, operating in the shadows to protect the poor and punish the corrupt and powerful. Think of them as a Sicilian Robin Hood, but operating as a secret brotherhood. Tales of the Beati Paoli are primarily set in Palermo, the capital of Sicily, during the medieval period, possibly around the 12th or 13th centuries, although some stories place them later. According to legend, they were a hidden tribunal that met in secret underground locations, such as caves or crypts beneath the Capo district of Palermo. From these subterranean lairs, they would dispense their own form of justice. Common folk who felt wronged by oppressive nobles or corrupt officials and had no recourse through the official legal system could supposedly appeal to the Beati Paoli. The members of this secret sect were said to be masked or hooded to protect their identities. They would investigate complaints, hold secret trials, and then carry out sentences which could range from warnings and restitution to more severe punishments, including assassinations of particularly cruel oppressors. Their actions were swift, mysterious, and often brutal, designed to strike fear into the hearts of those who abused their power. The name Beati Paoli itself is intriguing. Beati means blessed ones, and Paoli might refer to Paul, possibly Saint Paul the Apostle, or perhaps another figure. The implication is that they saw themselves as acting with some form of divine sanction or higher moral authority, doing God's work by protecting the vulnerable. They were heroes to the common people, a symbol of hope against tyranny. Much of what is popularly known about the Beati Paoli comes from a historical novel written in the early 20th century by Luigi Natoli under the pen name William Galt. His book, I Beati Paoli, published in installments between 1909 and 1910, became incredibly popular and cemented the legend in Sicilian culture. Natoli drew on earlier folktales and fragments of historical accounts, weaving them into a compelling narrative. The historical reality of the Beati Paoli is debated. While there isn't extensive contemporary documentation to prove they existed exactly as the legends describe, it's very possible that such secret groups, or groups fulfilling a similar function, did operate in Sicily during periods of weak governance. Sicily has a long history of foreign rulers and feudal oppression, creating conditions where secret societies or popular avengers might arise. Some scholars and writers have suggested that the Beati Paoli might be an early precursor or an inspiration for the Sicilian mafia. Both organizations are characterized by secrecy, codes of honor, a distrust of official state justice, and a willingness to use violence. However, the legendary Beati Paoli are typically portrayed with a strong sense of justice and a mission to help the oppressed, a far more romantic image than that of the later mafia. Possible that the mafia co-opted the positive image of the Beati Paoli to gain popular acceptance or legitimacy in its early days. Whether they were real, a complete fabrication, or a romanticized folk memory of actual historical figures or events, the Beati Paoli remain a powerful symbol in Sicilian folklore. They represent the enduring human desire for justice, especially when official channels fail. The idea of a secret righteous force working in the darkness to correct the wrongs of the world continues to fascinate, and the caves under Palermo still whisper their mysterious name. Number 4. The Order of Cheironia. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a time when expressing same-sex love could lead to severe legal and social penalties in most Western countries, a very discreet society called the Order of Cheironia was founded in England. This was an incredibly brave and necessarily very secret organization dedicated to the idea that love between men was natural and noble. Its existence sheds light on the hidden history of early gay rights advocacy. The order was founded around 1897 by George Ives, a poet, writer, and early penal reformer. Ives was deeply influenced by classical Greek ideals, particularly the concept of homosexual love and companionship as it was understood in ancient Greece. The name Cheironia itself is highly significant. It refers to the Battle of Cheironeia in 338 BC, where the sacred band of Thebes, an elite military unit composed of 150 pairs of male lovers, was famously wiped out fighting against Philip II of Macedon. For Ives and his contemporaries, the sacred band symbolized the courage, loyalty, and nobility of same-sex love. The primary purpose of the Order of Cheironia was to create a secret fellowship for men who loved men, a safe space for them to acknowledge their identities and support one another in a hostile world. It was also intended to subtly work towards legal and social reform, though open activism was virtually impossible at the time. The society aimed to cultivate a sense of pride and historical legitimacy for homosexual men, drawing on classical and historical examples of same-sex love to counter the prevailing view that it was a sickness or a sin. Membership was, by necessity, extremely selective and secret. Ives kept detailed records of the order in his extensive personal diaries, which run to many volumes and are now held in archives. These diaries provide most of what we know about the order. Members used a secret seal, likely had rituals, and swore an oath. The oath reportedly included a commitment to the cause, a promise of secrecy, and a pledge to behave with honor and prudence. Ives envisioned the order as a kind of spiritual knighthood, whose members were knights dedicated to the cause, the advancement of understanding and acceptance of same-sex love. The Order of Cheironia was not a large organization. It seems to have been more of a close-knit circle of like-minded individuals connected through Ives and other key figures. Its members included writers, artists, and intellectuals, some of whom were prominent in other fields but kept their involvement in the order deeply hidden. Famous figures like Oscar Wilde were aware of Ives and his ideas, and while Wilde himself was not a formal member, His imprisonment and public disgrace occurred just before the order's founding. His trial and its aftermath highlighted the extreme dangers faced by homosexual men and undoubtedly reinforced the need for such a secret society. The order's activities were discreet. They likely involved private meetings, discussions, sharing of literature, some of it written by Ives himself, and mutual support. Ives also corresponded with early sexologists and reformers in other countries, like Magnus Hirschfeld in Germany, trying to build an international network of understanding. The secrecy was paramount because exposure could lead to ruin, loss of reputation, career, imprisonment, and social ostracism. The Order of Chaeronea eventually faded, perhaps as its founding members aged or as the social and legal landscape began to slowly change in the mid-20th century, allowing for more open forms of activism. However, its existence is a testament to the resilience and courage of individuals who, in a deeply repressive era, sought to create a community and affirm their identities. George Ives and the Order of Chaeronea represent a crucial, if largely hidden, chapter in the long struggle for LGBTQ+ rights, a secret society born out of a need for safety, solidarity, and the belief in a more just future. Number 3. The Phylaci Eteria. In the early 19th century, Greece had been under Ottoman Turkish rule for nearly 400 years. The desire for independence burned strong in the hearts of many Greeks. Out of this longing emerged a secret organization that would play a pivotal role in igniting the Greek War of Independence, the Phylaci Eteria, which translates to the Society of Friends or Friendly Brotherhood. The Phylaci Eteria was founded in 1814 in Odessa, a city in present-day Ukraine, which was then part of the Russian Empire, and home to a large and prosperous Greek merchant community. The founders were 3 young Greek men, Nikolaos Skoufas, Emmanuel Xanthos, and Athanasios Tsakalov. They were relatively unknown individuals, not prominent military leaders or wealthy aristocrats, which perhaps helped them operate under the radar in the early days. Their goal was simple but incredibly ambitious: to liberate Greece from Ottoman control. The society was structured hierarchically, with several levels of initiation, much like the Freemasons or the Italian Carbonari, which may have served as models. New members, called eteroi, companions or associates, swore a solemn oath of secrecy and allegiance to the cause. The initiation rituals were designed to be deeply impressive and emotionally binding, often involving religious symbolism from the Greek Orthodox faith and invoking the glory of ancient Greece. Secrecy was absolutely essential. Discovery by Ottoman authorities would mean certain death for members and could crush the independence movement before it even began. As members progressed through the ranks, they were entrusted with more information about the society's aims and plans. There were different grades like Vlamus, brother, Systimonos, recommended, Irius, priest, and at the top, the Poemen, shepherd. Above even these was an invisible authority, Archie, a deliberately mysterious leadership whose identity was kept hidden from most members to enhance mystique and security. Many believe this authority consisted of powerful figures, perhaps even the Tsar of Russia, which helped to attract recruits who thought they were joining a movement with powerful international backing. The Phylaci Eteria grew rapidly, spreading its network throughout Greek communities in the Ottoman Empire, the Ionian Islands, then under British rule, and across Europe. Merchants, intellectuals, priests, military men, Celfs, and armatoloi, traditional Greek warriors and bandits, and even some Phanariotes, influential Greeks from Constantinople, joined its ranks. They communicated through coded messages and used secret symbols. Funds were raised, weapons were stockpiled, and plans were laid for a general uprising. One of the key figures who later became associated with the leadership was Alexander Ypsilantis, a Greek general in the Russian army. In 1820, he was elected to lead the Vigilante. In March 1821, Ypsilantis launched an ill-fated invasion across the Pruth River into the Ottoman-controlled Danubian principalities, modern-day Romania, hoping to spark a wider revolt. While this particular campaign failed, it served as a signal. Almost simultaneously, uprisings began in the Peloponnese region of Greece, effectively starting the Greek War of Independence. The Vigilante was instrumental in preparing the ground for this war. Provided the organizational structure, the ideology of liberation, and the initial coordination that transformed widespread discontent into a focused revolution. Though the society itself largely dissolved or was absorbed into the new revolutionary government structures, once the war began, its impact was immense. It demonstrated how a dedicated and well-organized secret society, fueled by nationalist ideals and a powerful desire for freedom, could mobilize a people and challenge an empire. The Society of Friends laid the secret groundwork for the birth of modern Greece. Number 2. The Carbonari. Imagine men meeting in secret, deep in forests or hidden in the back rooms of taverns, calling themselves charcoal burners and plotting revolution. This was the reality of the Carbonari, one of the most influential and widespread secret revolutionary societies in early 19th century Italy, and with branches in France, Spain, and elsewhere. Their name, meaning charcoal burners in Italian, evoked the imagery of hard-working, honest men of the forest, and their meeting places were called barakesh, huts, with the interior referred to as a vendita, a place for selling charcoal. The Carbonari emerged in the Kingdom of Naples during the Napoleonic Wars around 1806 to 1815. Their exact origins are a bit murky, possibly inspired by Freemasonry, but with a much more overtly political and revolutionary agenda. Initially, they may have had anti-French Bonapartist sentiments, but after Napoleon's fall and the restoration of conservative monarchies across Italy, their primary aim became overthrowing these repressive regimes, promoting liberal reforms, and achieving Italian unification and independence from foreign control, particularly Austrian influence in the north. Membership in the Carbonari was drawn from a wide range of social classes, including army officers, nobles, intellectuals, students, merchants, and even some clergy and peasants. This broad base gave them significant potential influence. To join, a candidate had to go through an elaborate initiation ceremony full of symbolism. They swore oaths of secrecy, loyalty, and dedication to the Carbonari's cause, often with daggers pointed at their hearts or other dramatic gestures to emphasize the seriousness of their commitment. Betrayal was punishable by death. The society had a hierarchical structure, with different grades or ranks. New members, known as apprentices, knew little of the society's ultimate aims. As they proved their loyalty and dedication, they could advance to the rank of master, where they learned more about the political goals. The rituals and symbolism were rich and complex. For example, the felling of trees represented the overthrow of tyrants, water symbolized purification, and salt represented incorruptibility. They used secret signs, handshakes, and passwords to recognize each other and communicate covertly. Carbonari were not a single centrally controlled organization, but rather a network of autonomous local groups, or lodges. This decentralized structure made them difficult for authorities to infiltrate and destroy completely, but it also sometimes led to a lack of coordination in their revolutionary efforts. They were involved in numerous uprisings and conspiracies throughout Italy in the 1820s and 1830s. Notable revolts in Naples, 1820, Piedmont, 1821, and in central Italian states, 1831, saw significant Carbonari participation. While these revolutions often had initial successes, They were usually suppressed by Austrian military intervention or the overwhelming force of the established monarchies. Despite these failures, the Carbonari played a crucial role in fostering a spirit of Italian nationalism, the Risorgimento, and keeping the flame of liberal revolution alive. Many future leaders of Italian unification, including Giuseppe Mazzini, who later founded his own revolutionary society, Young Italy, feeling the Carbonari were too elitist and their aims too vague, were initially members of or influenced by the Carbonari. The society's emphasis on secrecy, ritual, and sworn brotherhood inspired both fear in their enemies and fervent loyalty among their members. By the mid-19th century, the Carbonari's influence began to wane as other, more open or differently structured nationalist movements gained prominence. However, their legacy is undeniable. They were a powerful example of how secret societies could become vehicles for political dissent and revolutionary action in an era of autocratic rule. Charcoal burners who met in their forest huts helped to lay the clandestine groundwork for the eventual unification of Italy, even if their own direct efforts were often met with defeat. Their story is a potent reminder of the lengths people will go to, under the cloak of secrecy, to fight for their political ideals. Number 1. The Leopard Society. Deep in the forests of West and Central Africa, particularly in areas like Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ivory Coast, and Nigeria, existed a secret society that inspired terror and fascination: the Leopard Society. Active from the late 19th century into the mid-20th century, this was not a society focused on political revolution or intellectual pursuits, but on something far more primal and, according to reports, far more terrifying: ritualistic killing and cannibalism, all while disguised as leopards. The core belief behind the Leopard Society and similar animal-themed societies like the Crocodile Society or Panther Society was that by ritually killing a human victim and consuming parts of their flesh, members could gain spiritual power, enhance the fertility of their land or people, or strengthen communal bonds. The choice of the leopard was significant. Leopards are powerful, stealthy predators, greatly respected and feared in many African cultures. By donning leopard skins and mimicking the animal, members believed they could channel the leopard's ferocity and cunning. Membership in the Leopard Society was highly secretive and exclusive. Initiations were elaborate and often involved powerful oaths and rituals designed to bind members to the society and its dark secrets. To carry out their killings, members would dress in leopard pelts, sometimes with masks, and use sharp claw-like metal weapons, often three-pronged knives, attached to their hands to mimic a leopard's attack. They would typically ambush lone travelers or individuals from rival villages in remote forest paths. The victim's body would often be mutilated in a way that suggested a leopard attack, though specific organs or parts, like the heart or liver, were sometimes removed for ritual consumption. Purpose of these killings was not random violence. They were ritual acts believed to serve a specific spiritual or magical purpose for the society or the community it claimed to represent. Sometimes, the killings were said to ensure successful harvests, to gain an advantage in disputes with other groups, or to empower the society's members. The victims were often carefully chosen. The secrecy surrounding the society was intense. Members were sworn to silence, and the fear they instilled in the general population helped protect their identities. Anyone who spoke out against them or revealed their secrets faced deadly retribution. Colonial authorities in the regions where the Leopard Society operated, particularly the British and French, viewed them as a serious threat to public order and a barbaric practice. They launched extensive campaigns to suppress the society, leading to numerous arrests, trials, and executions of alleged members, especially in the early to mid-20th century. These trials often revealed gruesome details about the society's practices, though it was sometimes difficult to separate fact from rumor or to understand the complex cultural context from a purely Western legal perspective. Some anthropologists and historians suggest that the rise or increased activity of such societies might have been in part a response to the disruptions caused by colonialism, a way to reclaim traditional forms of power or resist foreign influence through esoteric means. Others point to long-standing indigenous beliefs about shashifting and the acquisition of power through ritual acts. The Leopard Society was not a monolithic entity. Rather, it seems to have been a phenomenon that manifested in various forms across different ethnic groups and regions, with local variations in beliefs and practices. Even with colonial suppression, rumors of Leopard Society activity persisted for many decades, and some believe that similar secret ritualistic practices may continue in extreme secrecy in some remote areas. The very idea of men transforming into leopards to hunt and kill humans is the stuff of nightmares, and it made the Leopard Society one of the most feared secret organizations in African history. Their legacy is one of terror, mystery, and a chilling glimpse into a belief system where the boundaries between human and animal life and death, power and ritual, were terrifyingly blurred in the depths of the African night.